Welcome, one and all, to This Morning. Now, this is not the TV programme presented by Philip Schofield, Holly Willoughby. This is the Sunday Morning Rant, presented by me, John. Welcome. Now, this week, I have received in the post 3 things, and I love reading these things because at the end of the day, you know, some of the equipment that I own is 30 plus years old, and it's really interesting to see what was said about this equipment when it was launched. So what did the marketing material say? So I have received this week the marketing material for the D10, the D20. Now, I own a D10, a D20 and a D50 and a D70. And the only reason I haven't got a D5 is I can't justify to myself why I should buy a D5, because it's the little baby brother of these two. But my D10 is currently with a friend who is really enjoying playing with it, and the D20 actually has a few issues on it, so I need to do a bit of repair on it. So it's in store at the moment. But I do love my D series synthesizers, I really do, and they are actually a really cracking synthesizer for somebody on a budget. Really cracking synthesizer. The second thing I've received is this one, my FB-01, or actually, as it happens, I have 2 FB-01s, both in the studio, and both of which, again, I love. They're fantastic for layering on sound reinforcement. In fact, actually, it's one of the things I use. I've got a D10, a D110, a D220. No, I haven't. I've got a U110 and a U220 with all the Roland sound cards that went with them, which actually go with these things here. And funny enough, I use them a hell of a lot for putting sound reinforcement in the stuff I'm writing, because some of the strings and some of the pads are really fab. Stock Roland sounds from the Roland sound library, but an FB-01, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And then I have the TX81Z, or the TX81Z if you're in England, because Z's and Z's are the same thing. Now, the reason why I enjoy reading these things is because quite often it gives you an insight into why or what was they proposed to do with this particular instrument when they launched it. So, for example, I'll go back to the FB-01, and if I open the FB-01, one of the things it does is, on this particular page, it tells you a load of configuration parameters. So it says, here is the configuration parameter for a live performance. And it actually has a KX5 guitar controller and a DX7 in the mix, both of which are controlling an FB-01. And then it says, here is the configuration for using the Music Composer System. Now, the Music Composer System was a computer that Yamaha published, or Yamaha made, in the 80s. And effectively, one of the things it did, it had a program that allowed you to program the FB-01. But in this particular, and what it says here is, if you look at it, it's giving you a controller keyboard, which is a YK-01. Now, I do not know what a YK-01 is. I've never seen a YK-01. I think it's the code name for the keyboard that comes with the computer. Then the computer itself, which is the CX5M. Then the program cartridge for the FB-01, which is a YRM501. And the FB-01 itself. Another interesting configuration. And then it says the MIDI recording system. And it gives you the, again with the CX5M, but here we actually come out of the FB-01 and we go into an RX drum machine. Then we have the sequence recorder system, which is actually used in a hardware sequencer, which was the Yamaha QX21. Now, again, I've only ever seen a Yamaha QX21 once. I'd love to get my hands on one just to play with it, but I've never actually. I don't see them come up on eBay or anywhere very often, so I just haven't got around to that. And then it just goes on to the MIDI studio system, and it gives you how that would be set up for the studio with a QX21 drum machine hard system, QX21 hardware sequencer. I'm not sure what a YMC10 is. What's YMC10? Oh, MIDI converter. Sorry, I do apologise. An RX21 drum machine, an FB-01, a DX100. I used to have a DX100. And obviously a tape recording system. In this case, it was an MT1X, which I believe was the Yamaha 4-track tape recorder. I think that's what it was. Again, I had a Testcam 4-track tape recorder back in the day. In fact, that was the first studio tape system that I had. The Testcam. Oh God, I can't think what it was now. But I remember recording with my friends "Shake It All Over," and if you turned the tape around and ran it back, it was all Harlish Gish. That's what "Shake It All Over" comes out. It was all Harlish Gish. But anyway, that's a different kettle of fish, and quite fun. You could have quite some fun with that. And then it goes on to sort of tell you on the back of this thing, you know, how to assign instruments and the bulk standard. So across the 5 ROM banks, so that's bank 3, bank 4, bank 5, bank 6, and bank 7, which happen to be ROM bank 1, ROM bank 2, ROM bank 3, ROM bank 4, ROM bank 5. Yeah, it's if I remember correctly, user 1 and ROM bank 1 and bank 2 was user definable. And you can put 48 voices into those 2, so you get effectively 96 voices that you can muck around with the parameters and store, and then these were the factory settings. And there's some really, really classic sounds in there, but that's really, really interesting. Now, what's really interesting is we go to the back page of this, and apart from sort of giving you a block diagram of how it generates the sound, one of the things it says on the back here is about the rack mounting unit for rack mounting a pair of FB-01s in a standard 19-inch rack. Now, I'd heard that Yamaha did do a rack mount, but this is the first time I've actually seen it referenced in material. And I am desperately trying to find a RFB-01 rack, if it still exists, because that would be fab to actually rack. I mean, at the moment I rack them up using a shelf, but you know, to rack them up with a proper Yamaha racking system would be fab. But that is the FB-01. When I go on to the TX-81, it's a little bit thinner. It's not as thick as the FB-01. But again, it does talk about, you know, alternative scales and and the effects on it. Now, this is something you don't see on a lot of things. You do see on older machines, which is the tape interface. Yes, these things used to work by storing stuff backwards and forwards by cassette tape. And there is on this TX-81Z, and I haven't been around the back of my TX-81Z for quite a while, but at the back of the TX-81, indeed, there is a DIN plug for plugging your cassette unit in so that you can actually store and load presets that you had created for the TX-81Z. The one thing they do say, of course, is that it's probably easier to use the MIDI data filer, which of course use 2.8 quick discs, which you would struggle to get hold of nowadays. Quick discs are like gold dust, especially the 2.8 format. And then we come on to the D10 and D20. Now, this really is the Roland marketing, you know, linear or arithmetic is what LA stands for, of course, which is their trademark synthesis for the D series. And what's really interesting, of course, about this is it covers off the D10, the D20, and of course it covers off the D110, which was the rack mount version of the D series, or these two D series synthesizers. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about these is that the standard Roland sound library cards don't work in the D series synths. They work in the U series equipment, but they don't work in the D series synths, and you can't use a D series card in a U series, which I think was a bit of an own goal, if I'm honest, from Roland, but it obviously made musicians put their hands in their pockets. But it also means that they had there were 3 specific cards for the D series, which expanded the D series, plus a whole raft of memory cards, of course. And obviously the ability on the D20 to actually save those sounds down to a floppy disk, and a standard size floppy disk, I might add, which was really quite interesting about the time, because a lot of manufacturers were on weird size floppy disks, or like quick disks for argument's sake. The 3.5 inch floppy, or which this uses, which was a sort of double density, double sided disc, wasn't common at this point in time. So this is really interesting that Roland had actually sort of adopted something that's bang up to date when this synthesizer was issued. It also goes on to say about the PG-10 programmer. Now, the PG-10 programmer is incredibly easy to use. Actually, you can manipulate the synthesizers really easy using the PG-100. Sorry, not 100, PG-10. PG-1000, of course, was the programmer for the D50, which, of course, can't interchange any sounds with the D20 and D10. So it's a really interesting thing that what Roland did with these, in that you had the D50, which was the flagship synth, and then they introduced and the D10 and the D20 and the D5 and the D110, which are all common, and you can effectively use the cards interchangeably across those 4 pieces of equipment. But you couldn't use those cards on the D50 because it was completely different. And then, of course, the D70 again can use some of the cards that can be used on the U series, but it can't use the D series cards, and it can't use the D50 cards. Go figure. Anyway, that's a look at a few bits and bobs that came through this week. It's very interesting to read that sort of stuff, because you actually understand what the thinking was and how they were marketing it. Now, a couple of other things that come through. Somebody offered me these, so I thought I would say yes. So that is the S50 Classic Orchestra Auto Demo, the S330 data disc, the S330 sequential data disc, the S550 Space Odyssey disc, and the S550 Space Odyssey 2 disc. Now, I shall be making duplicates of these and storing them in my disc library, which is where all my discs are going at the moment. I hopefully shortly, and I mean probably within the next couple of months, I will have some details on the website so people can get hold of this stuff. But I haven't quite got there yet. Lots of things are going on at the moment, which I can't really say. So just continuation of all the stuff that's going on isn't over yet. And then these two came through for the Korg, and this is the DSM-1 library and the DSM-1 library for brass and instruments, and this one was for multiple instruments. They came through as well, and again they will be shortly copied and put onto the master drive, which is where I'm copying been everything to. Other than that, it is far too hot to be sitting here talking to you guys. So I'm going to say goodbye. Bye-bye. So it's that point where I say, did you enjoy it? Because if you did, please give this video a thumbs up. I'm sure by now, if you didn't enjoy it, you've given this video a thumbs down. That's just life. Not everybody enjoys everything, and I recognise that. Over here somewhere is a subscribe button. If you press the subscribe button, every time I upload content to the channel, you'll get a notification. I know I upload videos like this, which is sort of the rant. I upload videos about mailbag items, which is where you or your friends or other YouTubers have left comments on the channel about specific pieces of equipment, and I try to answer those. And I also do videos about the equipment that is within my studio, how to use it, how to take it apart, and sometimes how to repair it. That's what you get from subscribing. It'd be wonderful to see you as a subscriber at some point. Over here will be 2 videos. One will always be the latest video that I've published to the channel. Another video will be selected at random from the channel based on your preferences by a YouTube algorithm, but it will always be a video from my channel. All that's left for me to do is say I hope to see you again soon, and bye bye.